My name is Nikki Stecker.
I'm Miriam Borquette, and we're running Unit 3 of Future Fashion System. I'm a fashion designer. I've worked in the industry for about 25 plus years, and I'm also a lecturer at RMIT in fashion and textiles, and my research centers around fashion and sustainability, particularly around remanufacturing.
And my background is also in the fashion industry as fashion designer. I worked in the industry for 15 years, fell a little bit out of love when I found out about the massive environmental and social impact that it has. Now I consult and support organizations as well as government around innovation and circular economy in fashion, but also in other sectors. We are very passionate about getting students to understand circularity in fashion and what that means. We talk about circular economy, and for fashion it has just a unique form that we hope the students will start to understand during the studio with us. It's really important for us to discuss circularity because that's the future direction that we see this industry taking for it to be in balance with the environment and with the people. And it's definitely a complex system, so that's why we get students to understand what circularity means and what are the systems that are necessary for any fashion product to exist and to be placed in this system.
So the systems require a whole range of solutions that need to be inserted into the whole supply chain and the whole life cycle of the garment. So our studio particularly focuses on the area around eliminating and reusing waste, because the way that Victoria is positioned globally is we tend to be at the end of that long chain in terms of our geography, but also in terms of the product use phase of the garments. So addressing waste in a localized way is really important. So we looked at reusing our local waste streams, both from a garment perspective, but also from other industries that generate textile waste. And that was the material the students worked with for their projects. So my perspective on the Victorian context is that we still have some local manufacturing capacity, while it is greatly reduced compared to previous eras. There is still a surviving and in some instances, I guess, thriving independent design sector around fashion design, but there is no system around the waste management from the textile side. So that area is definitely something that requires development. So working with students around visualizing and exploring ways that could be integrated into our local system is really exciting. So nurturing both the kind of reimagining how design can happen to better address our local needs, also imagining how we can reuse the waste that we may generate, and as a really exciting building block, because a lot of the garments that we're using are actually pre-consumer, so they've never been worn, they've never been sold, they are perfectly intact material with a lot of potential, and I think that's something really exciting for the students to see and to challenge themselves with in terms of reimagining what that could be.
Yeah, it's also something very shocking for the students when they first approach our studio and we show them the amount of waste that we create, and they try to research into it, but it's so hard to quantify. What Miriam was saying is the garments that are still intact with a tag on and they never get sold. And it's really hard to put a number to that because there's no way, there's no need for the organization, for the businesses to tell us that number, and obviously they have no intention to tell us. And then what happens afterwards is that we're big consumers of fashion products. We might not make a lot of them locally at this stage, but we're big consumer. We buy a lot and we wear clothes for less than a year before throwing them out or parking them somewhere in our closet and forgetting about it. And more than 90% of those clothes, when we're done, when we throw them away, we realize are actually sitting in a landfill because we don't have systems around it to make sure that they're managed. But what we do is obviously beyond the waste. It's about starting from the waste because that's the problem that we need to solve. And as designers, it's important that we just don't design to only to express ourselves, but also that we start from tangible problems that through our practice and through our creativity we can actually solve. And that's what usually gets the students really excited when we start getting into the ideas and the solutions. We've learned a lot. Should I start with the bad news?
Go for it. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, we've been trying to get the students to engage firsthand with industry experts and people that are out there solving these problems every day as part of their business or their everyday work, because it's really important for them to be really looking out there to the real world and not just listening or reading something on a book. And visiting a recycler facility or a sorting facility firsthand is something that gives a lot of food for thoughts, for sure. Unfortunately, by visiting these recycling organizations or sorting organizations, as well as speaking with organizations like Thread Together, it's a social enterprise that takes back unsold garments and distributes them through a network to people in need. The feedback that we have from both of them is that the volume of waste is increasing. So if it's something so visible and clear just in a 3-year span, it means that it's quite worrying, and we're definitely heading in a non-hopeful direction in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, the waste stream is definitely a huge problem locally, and the statistics say about 6,000 kilos of textiles end up in landfill every 10 minutes. So there's definitely a big need. But on the other hand, I guess circularity, even from 3 years ago, we can see has become far more embedded in both government strategies as well as industry. So since 3 years ago, we now have I guess a kind of scheme that has been brought in called Seamless by the government and built through the Australian Fashion Council to try and address this problem. So circularity has now been acknowledged as a strategy to try to divert this waste from landfill, but hopefully also prevent it from occurring in the first place. So industry is also engaging with this. I can see that with my work with industry, that there is a desire to embed circular strategies really from the beginning of the whole product life cycle of the garments. So that is a change that in a relatively short amount of time we can see. And we can certainly see that the students understand these ideas and can, I guess, engage with them in really creative ways and imagine ways in which they, as both wearers of clothes as well as possibly designers of clothes, could be thinking about incorporating them into a new way of wearing and consuming and expressing themselves through clothes. So that's been a really interesting observation even within a short time frame. So from a waste perspective in the last 3 years, we can see how non-fashion related textile waste is actually growing from what we can see from the textile recyclers that we've gone to visit. So for example, a waste stream like mattress covers, so unused mattress covers that have never been used are ending up in these recycling facilities, and we have tapped into that this year as a way to rethink them as garments. So that is something that over the years has actually increased as a waste stream, and we've decided to bring it into the studio as a material to explore as a garment.
We also found tarp, a lot of
truck tarps.
That's another waste stream that we found that's been parked outside of the recycler because essentially there's no one that can process that at the moment. Its composition is complex, so it might contain PVC and other nasty chemicals, which makes processing that type of material very complex, and most of the times this happens overseas. We don't manage any of that waste locally. So when we visit these organizations, most of what these recyclers and sorting organizations do, it's actually finding the right stream and the right channel for these waste, not recycling locally, because in Victoria we basically don't have any recycling plant that we can count on, so we need to rely on exporting very heavily.
So what we hope people will take away from the exhibition is that there are a lot of strategies and ways that we can imagine using clothes in new ways, and imagine clothes being made in new ways, designed in new ways, which the students have explored in a wide range of garments that they've produced for the exhibition. And something that's been really interesting this year is that a lot of this is tied to the behavior and the desire to use clothing to express ourselves, to reinvent ourselves, to project our identities through clothing. So changing that behavior is something that hopefully an exhibition like this can get people to think about, and think about new ways in which they might get more life out of what they already have, maybe share what they have, reinvent something that they already have, and maybe redesign something they already have. So a lot of this is about empowering, giving agency to wearers, stewards of clothing, so that that whole life cycle of a garment can be extended. And hopefully they'll be excited about the range of solutions that the students have explored, demonstrating that potential.
Hopefully this will inspire also a new generation of designers to produce or to create in a way that is more responsible and that can really help and engage the customers or the users, so that our garments will have a longer life and will be loved for a longer time.
And maybe more people will buy sewing machines and make their own things. We've seen that from students from past years that have gone out and felt confident enough to explore that whole reinvention of material. So that's really exciting to see. You can really see the penny dropping with students and feeling like it's tangible and possible, and exploring these small projects kind of opens up a new area of investigation of how design can be applied in new ways through clothing. So it's been really exciting to see that, I guess, the world of possibilities opening up for them. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't even only give them all the bad news. We also give them some tools to be directly involved and to frame their role and try to express their values through design practice. So, yeah, or at the very least, repair their own clothes when they go home.